So again, April is Stress Awareness Month. We're talking lots and lots of things, okay? So today is called Does Stress Have You in Dysfunction? We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Let me wait. Does stress have you in disfunction? We know we've seen a lot of people where they're in a funk because of stress.
Yes.
So I need to
thank
clear
you
that up a little bit.
for emphasizing that.
Yeah.
So next week, Dr. Rappy is going to be doing a deep dive into our laser, and if our laser can get you back in the game. The following week is what is insulin resistance and why isn't your doctor telling you about it? That's a big one. And then the last one, get ready for this, is inflammation killing you? Wow. Okay, so that's the lineup for this month. So again, we're always so mindful of time, and so we want to jump in and talk about stress. And I think first the doctor has something.
So I try to read this every week. It's just a reminder to everybody that's watching. The presentation is for informational purposes only. The information is not a substitute for medical advice from your medical doctor. This information is not meant to prevent, diagnose, treat, or cure any health conditions. If you're concerned about your health conditions, please discuss it with your medical doctor and visit an ER.
Okay. Got it?
Everybody's
Perfect.
good.
Okay.
Got that out of the way.
So now that we got that done, I guess we should introduce ourselves too. So I'm Lori Rappy. My husband,
Hi, I'm Dr. Rappy.
We're from Thrive Functional Wellness Center. We're here in La Quinta. Hopefully people will be joining us from all over because we help people from all over remotely. So again, we're talking about stress. April is Stress Awareness Month. Hi, Shauna.
Hi, Shauna.
Is Stress Awareness Month. This is really important to me. This topic is really important to both of us. We really feel that in the current health models, the stress piece is not really talked about. And in our office and our wellness program, in the coaching that we do, it's a huge piece of the puzzle, huge piece to achieving the optimum health, right? So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask the doctor a few questions and let's dive in.
So before we get started, we just want everybody on here to know that prior to COVID, we saw people that were coming into our wellness program, and there was always that piece of stress that was never addressed by their medical doctor, unless they put them on an anti-anxiety medication or those kind of things. But it was never really addressed. What can they do from a natural standpoint to deal with their stress? But when COVID happened, it just got worse. The media driving this narrative of fear. And so we saw the stress component with our wellness clients become this huge part of why people were in dysfunction. And so that's why we decided to bring this up today and talk about it. And so Lori, leading into this, she's going to ask questions. I'll do the best I can. We're going to do more back and forth because she has a lot of great information too that not only she shares with our wellness clients, but she wants to share with anybody who might be on here today.
Yeah, it's a really important topic. So let's dive in. I think this is really important. What are the three main categories of stress? I think you're going to find this interesting.
So, I mean, we could list 10 categories, but the three main ones that I think everybody that's on here or anybody that's out there in the world today is experiencing at some form or at some level, and there would be physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. So those are the big three. Certainly there are subcategories, but let's just talk about the big three. So let's go to chemical stresses. And most people say, oh, I don't have any stress. Okay, so let me ask you, did you take a shower this morning? I hope so. If you did, you used shampoo, you used body wash, maybe you shaved, you used aftershave lotion and colognes and deodorants and whatnot. That's just an example of the possibility that you're exposing yourself to chemicals that are not good for you. And so from there we go to, do you wash your clothes? Do you get your clothes laundered? Your sheets, your towels. Do you vacuum the carpet? Do you use any kind of carpet cleaner, Carpet Fresh, Febreze? I mean, there's an endless list of products that people use on a daily basis, not connecting here with the fact that those all have chemicals in them, unless you've done a little bit of research, worked with some people like us, and we're saying, look, let's look at the most natural products available out there and use those. So those are chemical exposures that we're all exposed to. Here in the valley where we are in Southern California, out in the desert, it's been really, really windy as of late. And so there's all these chemicals that get taken off of the surface and up into the air and blow around. And so you're breathing them in. And so there's those chemical stresses. Let's see. And then, of course, then in some of the food products, there's chemicals in the food products and whatnot. If you don't wash your vegetables properly, if you don't, those kind of things. And so those are chemical stresses that they can affect us physiologically. They can change our own personal chemistry and really have a detrimental effect on all of the metabolic processes in the body and how the organs work together. So chemical stress is huge. So for anybody out there goes, oh, no, I don't think I have any stress, you've got chemical stress. You have to, okay? Emotional stress, this fits with this COVID thing. So let me address that one last. Physical stress could be, an example is we have a really good friend who has had a exterminator company where they do a lot of work, and he's out constantly lifting jugs and containers of products, and they use all natural products, by the way, to help people with their bug problems. But there's a lot of physical demand involved, you know. So in that case, there's an example. Physical demand on the job, at home. It might be that you're over-exercising. I have a tendency to do that myself. This morning I did 2 hours of continuous cardiovascular work, and it was time to finish when I felt exhausted and would pass out. My wife will come home at lunch and I'm laying on the floor in the garage. So that's an overdoing it of physical activities, and those all affect us physiologically. So once we hit a certain level in exercise, beyond that can be toxic to us. And so those, again, are going to be the three main things: physical stresses, chemical stresses.
Can I also add to the physical stresses for people who just have those daily aches and pains, right, that they're not addressing?
Correct.
So
yes,
it may not be stimulated through work or different things. We see that all the time, and they just let them go for so long before they address them. So
that's correct. And then the last one, we're dealing with what's been going on out there today, and that's emotional stress. And in my talks that we used to do, it was pretty straightforward. Emotional stress can be anything that has to do with your emotions. Let's say you've got a child who's struggling in school. This last year, anybody that's got children in school, they're going to struggle. I could have never learned on a computer. I was looking out the window wondering, when am I going to go fishing? Is it duck hunting season? And we're going to go deer hunting. I was thinking about those things. So put me in front of a computer, I would have never been able to get through school. So that can be emotional for parents, that they know their children are falling behind, and now the burden of their children's education is on their shoulders, but they're working full time. And so that's an emotional stress. Or a family member that gets sick. Long-term diseases really are destructive emotionally to the family unit and to the relations or the relatives of that individual. We've had lots of spouses come through our office who've spent years walking through this process of disease before it finally takes their spouse to the next level. And it's just really, really difficult. That changes your chemistry and your physiology. We all have emotions of some kind. We're pet people, and we've had pets die. And if you've ever had that, it's incredibly difficult. You could literally go to grieving groups for that because they're part of our family. And so those are all kinds of emotional stresses that we can deal with on a daily basis. Just moving to a new town, that you've been in one town for 20 years and just moving away, and those interpersonal relationships with friends and neighbors and whatnot, and then all of a sudden they're not there and you're trying to develop new ones, that's very emotional as well. So there's so much emotional stress out there right now, the pandemic and just everything that's going on. And so if you're not dealing with these three levels of stress, your body is really in disfunction. And so we're going to talk about some of the top negative stress impacts on the body as we move forward.
Yeah, and I love when I hear him talk about that, because I think that people don't give stress enough credit, actually, for the damage it does to our bodies. And so whether it's any of those, you talked about the emotional, the chemical, the physical, it's still doing the same damage. So that's just
Right.
something to think about. Is that interesting information for you guys? Give us a little thumbs up if you're kind of following along. Julie, thank you for sharing. Yes, physical stress. You were a perfect example of that today.
Yes, you were. Get your ice on.
And a little bit of emotional and some of the different things we're going to talk about too. It's sleep and different things. And so, so often we don't, like I said, we don't take the time to see how that's damaging us. So,
got to give credit where credit is due, and stress plays a big part in our dysfunction.
and it also is a huge part of the work that we do. Thank you, everybody, for giving us the thumbs up, because in functional medicine, when we are working on identifying the underlying causes and not just putting Band-Aids, well, the stress could be a really big piece. So it's tools, especially in the coaching I do. Every single day I'm teaching tools, preventative tools, tools that you will use in the moment of an anxiety attack. You know, there's just a lot going on for us right now. I could just talk about it. So let's go into this part, because I think this is really good. What are the top negative impacts that stress has on the body?
So let's talk about the first one on the list, is disruption of your sleep cycle. Disruption of your sleep cycle has a huge negative impact on the body, and most people don't even acknowledge it or recognize it. We know your medical doctor won't, and if they do, they're going to give you some kind of a drug, trazodone or something, and then it's not what we're really interested. We want really good natural sleep. There is very specific amount of time that we need. We're looking at 6 hours minimum. Okay? If you're not getting that 6 hours, what happens in our body physiologically during that 6 hours, we're going to repair and we're going to recover from the day we just had to prep ourselves for the day coming before us. And if we don't get that, we can never perform at a level of efficiency where we're just optimal. You know, we feel good, we perform good, we're really getting stuff done at work, we're just rolling on a high. And it's not going to happen. And so then you just get further and further behind, and then that's going to affect how we feel about ourselves and my work product, and then I start to feel down on myself and all that kind of stuff. So 6 hours of sleep is really, really important, okay?
Yeah, that's a good one. And some other ones, the next one I want to touch upon a little bit is digestion. I don't think people make that connection. And if you guys watched our talk on gut, and I talked about my Crohn's disease, and we really went into bloating and, you know, all that gut dysfunction. Well, stress is a huge trigger for gut issues, huge. And it's that piece of the puzzle. It's kind of like when people come to us with the sleep issues, the digestion issues. Yes, we can address the digestion issues, but if we aren't doing a deeper dive also into the stress, this is just going to keep flaring up.
Correct.
So you see why it's so important to connect the dots and to really work on all the different pieces.
Right.
So digestion is amazing, and it affects the brain function. You know, what happens, I think you said this, what happens in the gut happens in the brain.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, so the whole gut scenario when it comes to stress, there's all kinds of research that show high levels of stress can cause massive dysfunction in the gut. We're talking stomach and the intestines. And so with that being said, there's a lot of important things that are taking place in the gut, from neurotransmitter production, food digestion, absorption, appropriate absorption. We can develop leaky gut, and that leads back to the last one. Leaky gut syndrome can lead to all kinds of dysfunction in the body, inflammation. In addition to, it can lead to brain dysfunction. And so it's really important to understand that stress affecting just my gut alone can have ramifications everywhere else in the body. And like we said earlier, we see a lot of people and they don't even make the connection. Maybe we have a lady who's a mortgage banker, and she's got like 8 people underneath her, and she is absolutely stressed out of her mind, and she can't understand why she's gassy and her acidic and diarrhea and all that.
Yeah.
She just can't make the connection to the stress of her job. So until she addresses what's happening in my job and learns how to handle that stress, that's never going to go away. We can do detox and we can do supplements and all that stuff, but she's not addressing the underlying cause. And so it's really important to make those connections.
Well, and you just brought something up that a lot of people right now are just going online and buying supplements, especially during COVID, right? Everybody bought a supplement for something. Even a supplement can be a Band-Aid, and if in the sense that we're not really always addressing the underlying issues, those supplements may not be useful. So yeah, and yes, Susan, yeah, thank you. All above to the stresses. I think all of us can relate to one of the stresses at some time. That's why we teach tools, so you have them in your toolbox, and when you need them, then you're going to do it. What I want to really help people understand too is a connection with the immune system. Can you tell me a little bit about what stress does? It weaken the immune system?
So again, here we go. Stress has an amazing, incredibly huge, large, phenomenally gigantic negative impact on the body in all areas. But if we're going to look at the immune system, there's tons of research that shows that stress suppresses your immune system. And over the last year, there's nobody on here or anybody that's in this sphere that we're in should want their immune system depressed. It's just, no, it's not what you want. And so we can have a suppressed immune system from a number of different things, and I could spend hours talking about that. But if we're talking just about stress, elevation in stress is going to diminish your immune system, which makes you more susceptible to a lot of things. In this particular scenario, colds and flus, but worse, the COVID, what did Kevin Hart say? I got the vid. Where's my ventilator? I got the vid. And so we don't want the vid, so you got to keep your immune system strong, and you can't do that if you don't manage your stress.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one, an important one. And again, I feel like every day I'm always talking about how we're helping people connect the dots, right? Our body is all connected. You don't just have one thing happen and it doesn't affect everything else. So that's really huge. We talked a little bit about the gut-brain function. Is there anything, the brain fog, any of that related?
Well, we made that connection last week in the brain-gut connection. It goes both ways. So let's just say I'm under a tremendous amount of stress at work, or let's say we take an individual who's really well off, but their stresses are different. They're trying to protect their money from taxation and thieves and all kinds of stuff. That's another example of stress. But when we have that stress, it's going to affect the gut. If it affects the gut, it's going to affect the brain. So I could have cognitive skill loss. We see this a lot in older people too. They start to have cognitive dysfunction. They lose their skills. For young kids, we want to talk about kids under stress right now, trying to learn on a computer. Guess what? Under stress for them, they're going to start having learning and concentration difficulties, which is really a challenge when you're trying to learn online. And so it's just, that regulating self-control and then emotions, The emotions are really challenging when it comes from the gut because of stress, and all of a sudden we're in a depressive state. So it's really important to understand that. And lastly, we know that stress can drive and make us prone to Alzheimer's, right? Absolutely. Alzheimer's and other dementias. And it's all connected, how it all works. But the example I gave last week in the brain-gut one was that if I have enough gut dysfunction and I have leaky gut and I have toxins leak in, they can affect my brain and drive me down the path of dementias and or Alzheimer's, which if you know anything about Alzheimer's, it's not something you want, okay?
No.
And so that's just kind of a really big one, but it's all tied together in this kind of yarn, this ball of yarn where it's just all wound together. So, but you got to get to the base foundation, and that's the stress.
So there's two more big ones that we're going to talk about, and then I want you to know, I know that we're talking about stress, it's kind of a negative thing. I am going to give everybody a little tool before we end, because I always like to end things on a positive note. I hadn't really planned this at the beginning, but I think that it's important since we are bringing up all these stresses. But there are two other areas we just want to touch on. Any connection between your heart and stress?
Sure, of course. So let's say we're under a lot of stress and our adrenal glands are pumping out all this cortisol, and I can get a large increase in heart rate, blood pressure, right? Insulin levels. Before you know it, I'm developing heart disease, obesity, and you can just see how it just grows out from there. So stress can have a huge impact on heart. I mean, we've got a number of clients right now that are dealing with AFib. Stress will drive your AFib. If I exercise properly, that's going to reduce my stress. It's going to help manage my AFib. So it's kind of this interesting web of how it all works. But without question, stress can drive heart disease, obesity, all of those things. And they're all associated with your heart and how your heart functions.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The last one, and I think this is something that's come up for a lot of people, especially during COVID, is there any connection between weight gain and stress? I think probably everyone can answer that.
That's a silly question. Anybody on here that hasn't stress eaten in the last year? I have.
I have too.
She has. I witnessed it. We did it together.
He has more than I have.
We took turns. So stress eating is really challenging. But again, if you have the tools to manage stress, then I don't go to stress eating. Then I'm able to control the stressing. When I have that urge, I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling like, let me soothe myself with some comfort food. If I'm able to manage my stress, I don't go there. It's my personal way, and everybody else can utilize that as well. For me, it's exercise. Like I said this morning, I did a couple hours of continuous cardiovascular work, and then also meditation. I'm a big meditator. I love breath work. If you don't know anything about breath work, we might do a little cast on breath work. It's phenomenal. And so those are the tools that I use for my stress. And we've done a pretty good job over the last year of maintaining our weight. We see a lot of people that'll say, well, I gained a little bit of weight and that was more like, 30 to 50 pounds. And so to go up and down 5 or 10 pounds isn't a big fluctuation, but when you start gaining that 20, 30, 40, and then it never comes off, then it just compounds into more problems and more problems and more problems. And so, but again, if you've got a routine and you stick to your routine and you do the things that we teach people to do, then it's just a matter of a few pounds isn't that big of a deal.
Right, you're able to get things back in balance.
Yes.
And take control over things. Yeah.
Recognize the problem, take appropriate actions to correct it, and feel better.
Yeah, exactly. And even just this morning, I don't know if I was posting on Facebook or Instagram, but I was thinking and talking about the morning routine. And that is so important. And we teach all of our wellness members about the importance of routine, right? Who here has a good morning routine? If you don't have a good morning routine, who here, give me a thumbs up for, you can imagine how important that morning routine would be by starting your day. And I appreciate everybody sharing about having been there. I think that was for the stress eating. For the morning routine, starting your day off the right way is so important. And like Dr. Rappy said, there's so many tools. I mean, I couldn't even begin to talk about all the different tools that we teach. But I did want to give one tool. Did you have anything else to say about the weight before I go into the...
No, just don't beat yourself up. That's adding additional emotional stress. When you continuously beat yourself up, I know better, I should have done better, and then you just keep beating yourself up. Look, acknowledge. Yes, I've gained more weight than I should. Yes, acknowledge. 2, what action steps can I take to get back on track? And don't be a hero and think that somehow you're just going to go boom and you're going to just do it all. Take the small steps. Make short-term goals. Set it up for a week, 3 weeks, a month, and work you out and set your long-term goal for maybe 6 months. And make them obtainable. There's nothing worse than setting goals and then you don't obtain them because something came up and you beat yourself up even more and then you give up. So short-term goals that you can obtain so you feel successful. And so that's really the process. But just acknowledge we all have been in the same boat, paddling on the same side. The bottom line is acknowledge that it's taken place, and now what can we do to correct it?
And it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
This is really huge. We own our own business, and the last year has had a lot of ups and downs. We've had a lot of stressful moments, but we're using our tools, and we have coaches and mentors that we work with because we are coaches and mentors for people. So it's really important. I have this quote, and thank you, Nicole and Jordan. Yes, the morning routine is huge. We could do an entire Facebook Live just about that.
Just journaling, just getting up and journaling once a day. You can't imagine how much relief you get out of just writing out all this stuff in your head. It's huge.
Yeah, so journaling, and the one tool that I'm gonna teach, but I do like the journaling. And the other thing that I love, I am the queen of gratitudes. Waking up and saying out loud.
Lists, that's her number one.
Yeah,
and then gratitudes. She's a list person.
I am a list person. And on my list is to do my affirmations and my gratitudes.
Right.
I start my day, end my day, all day long. Gratitudes are huge. And so I have this quote I'm going to read really quick, because I think this is really important and relative to what we're talking about. So, ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside and weigh you down.
Wow.
We had a team meeting today, and I
That's
shared
awesome.
that as well. So if you visualize your boat in water, there's water everywhere around you. There is stress everywhere around you. We cannot remove the stress. Oh, thank you, Julie, for a huge list person. Yes, I am. The stress around us is going to be there because there's a lot of different things, and we can only work on controlling what we can control. Letting that water in is when we sink. So what I want to teach you really quickly is a very quick breath work. I teach this to everybody, and you can even go online and research it. It's 4-7-8. So it's by Dr. Weil. He's the one who developed it. He has all these studies and everything behind it. And he actually has shown how it helps to immediately, and I've seen this, immediately reduces a panic attack, an anxiety attack right in the middle. And it can reduce AFib. I like to use it two ways after I show you it do. If you're in the middle of a situation, you're feeling very panicked, you can step right in and do it. But what I like to do is add this to your morning routine. We're very much about preventative. Let's get ahead of things. Let's do this breath work every single day, because what happens is then everything that you come across during the day, you're going to be calmer. You're not going to react the same. It just puts you in a different place and actually calms your central nervous system. So I challenge you to try doing it. You can do it tonight. You can do it in the morning, but to do at least 5 times in the morning.
And you can do it multiple times a day. Nobody says you can't do it at lunch.
Exactly. So 4-7-8. What that stands for is the count. So you're going to breathe in to the count of 4. You're going to hold it for the count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And breathe out slowly to the count of 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Like a leaky tire.
Let me tell you the secret behind that breathing. The 4 and the 7 are important. It's the 8. It's the slow breath work out that really calms things down. Because you'll notice when you feel stressful, you have short little breaths. And so doing that elongated breath is amazing. So I wanted to leave on something positive. We are talking about stress all month, and a lot of it is just to help you make those connections. And again, you'll have all of our information. You can reach out, we can help you. We have lots of tools, lots of different ways to get in touch with us. We're here. This is what we do. Okay, I think we are at our time. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate everybody who's joined us. Again, next week, we're going to be talking about the stress, more about the physical stress. And so we have this tool, the laser. And so even if you don't live here locally, you'll learn about the laser and inflammation and all those different pieces. So thank you, and thank you everybody who participated.
And I just want to say to everybody on here, we so appreciate the opportunity that you give us to share this information. If just the tiniest piece today was helpful to anybody on here, that's fulfilled what we do on a daily basis, and our passion is to help people. And so we're just really grateful that you're willing to allow us into your lives via the live stream that we're on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly it. This is our passion. It's our life. This is what we do. All right, everybody, have a fantastic evening. Try that breath work.
Breath work.
Throw in some gratitudes.
Journal.
You're going to love it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for the feedback.